Okay, class. This week we'll be talking about Gestalt therapy, developed by Fritz Perls, Laura Perls, and Paul Goodman in the 1940s. But Fritz Perls is the one that many individuals connect as the founder. It is an experiential and humanistic form of therapy that was originally designed as an alternative to conventional psychoanalysis. Gestalt therapists and their clients use creative and experiential techniques to enhance awareness, 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 awareness. I think that's an important word. Freedom and self-direction. The word Gestalt comes from the German word meaning shape or form, and it references the character or essence of something. We're looking at taking a more holistic approach or view of the individual, and we're talking about the here and now. The things that you need to remember about Gestalt, if you see it, is focusing on the here and now, and the main goal is to bring awareness. We'll talk about it in more detail. Now, Gestalt therapy is similar to person-centered therapy in this way, because the core of Gestalt therapy is the holistic view that people are linked to and influenced by their environments, and that all people strive toward growth and balance. And it also emphasizes the therapist's use of empathy, understanding, and unconditional acceptance of the client to enhance the therapeutic outcomes. But there's a difference. Okay? What I would like for you to do is read this, or follow me as I read it. According to a research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and the last be at the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. Amazing, huh? Now I want you to pause the video right now and look at these words and see how they're scrambled. But isn't it amazing how the mind is programmed and you're able to read those things the way they're jumbled? One thing that I would like to mention with regard to this particular slide is that we're looking at perception. Perception. Now, there are many organizing principles called Gestalt law. The most general version is called the law of Pragnanz. Pragnanz is German for pregnant, but not in the sense of pregnant meaning bearing child or with child. This law says that we are innately driven to experience things in a good and Gestalt as possible, in as good a Gestalt as possible. Good can mean many things, such as regular, orderly, simplistically, symmetry, and so on, which then refer to the specific Gestalt laws. So, perception is key here. Right now, I would like for you to pause the video and take a look at this theory in action, Gestalt. Go ahead and copy in the YouTube link. You know the process by now, the order. Go ahead and copy it, or if you have to do a search, theory in action is what it's called, a therapy session, so that you can find this. One thing that I want to say, now that you've returned to this slide, psychological health is largely a matter of identification with the whole self and and maximum use of the whole self for necessary tasks in the lived environment. That is what Gestalt is basically talking about. We're looking at the whole person within their environment. Gestalt therapy. Existential and phenomenological. It is grounded in the client's here and now. Now, it's existential because it is grounding the ideal that people are always in the process of becoming. People are always in the process of becoming existential. People grow, evolve in response to tension and contradictions in life. Now, the phenomenological, in that it focuses on the client's perception of reality. Through this awareness, change automatically occurs. So this phenomenon, their experience, their perceptions of reality, how they see things. The initial goal for the therapy is for the clients to gain awareness of what they are experiencing and doing now, the here and now. It promotes direct experiences rather than abstractness of talking about situations. Rather than talk about a childhood trauma, the client is encouraged to become the hurt child. We want to be the hurt little boy so that they can complete unfinished business that they need closure with. These methods are powerful catalysts for opening up feelings and getting clients in contact with their present-centered experiences. The principles of Gestalt therapy. Holism, the full range of human functioning, including thoughts, feelings, behaviors, body language, and dream. Remember, the whole Gestalt theory emphasizes the importance of wholeness, integration, and balance in people's lives. Man is considered a total organism functioning as a whole, rather than an entity split into dichotomies such as the mind and the body. So we're looking at the whole person. We're looking at the whole person, and holism is what we're looking at. Field theory. Field theory. The field is the client's environment that consists of the therapist and the client and all that goes on between them. The client is a participant in a constantly changing field. So, what are we saying here? Gestalt therapists work in the here and now and are sensitive to how the here and now includes residues of the past, such as body posture, habits, and beliefs. So they're aware of these things. What we're talking about, and when we're looking at field theory, again, the field is the client's environment. That's what we're looking at. Client is a participant in a constantly changing field and their environment and the world they're in, but we're focusing on the here and now and bringing awareness. Awareness is the key. Figure formation process. How an individual organizes experiences from moment to moment. How an individual organizes experience from moment to moment. Now, what they're talking about, when you're talking about the foreground is the figure and the background is the ground, a person identifies a figure from the background. From the background. An example, you see words on this particular slide that are printed as the figure. They're the figure. And the white slide in the back is the background. So that helps in identifying what you see when we're talking about figure formation, how an individual organizes experiences from moment to moment. That affects how you see. If it wasn't for the background wasn't there, would you be able to actually see the figures or the words on the page? So that helps with determining and organizing experiences from moment to moment. Organismic self-regulation, the emergence of need sensations and interest disturb an individual's equilibrium. Healthy organismic self-regulation, one is aware of shifting need states. Those needs as they shift, they're aware of them. That what I want is more important becomes the figure of one's awareness. Those things that are very, very important becomes the figure of one's awareness. Now, when we're talking about this, it's basically, the theory is basically saying that individuals have the potential to become aware of the shifting needs and sensations and able to better adjust to them as they come when they're focused on the here and the now. If, for example, something happens that reminds you of a time that when you were a little child, and it happens in the present moment and you're 38, and you focus on that, and it starts thinking about being a little child and how it affected you back then, and you're focusing on that and thinking that this is going to happen this way, then you're not focusing on the here and now, you're focusing on the present. Any of these, the need sensations and interest disrupt an individual's equilibrium. Things can be off, can be altered. Hopefully I didn't confuse you too much with that one. When we're talking about Gestalt, there's two things that I would like to discuss a little bit more, and we're talking about perceptions and experiences. Now, when you're looking at this particular figure, can you see two faces? Do you see a candle holder? Now, what you see going on, because the figures are interchangeable, they're going back and forth. We're looking at multi-stability or multi-stable perception is the tendency of ambiguous perceptual experiences to pop back and forth unstably between two or more alternative interpretations. And if we're thinking about Gestalt and we're thinking about perception, then this is one picture you're looking at. And the mind or the eyes, sometimes you feel like they're playing tricks because they can show two different things. So when we're looking at perception, we're talking about people experiencing things differently also. And people having an awareness that there might be one thing that looks one way, but it actually looks another way, and which one of those perception better match what's reality. Okay? For this particular figure, this is demonstrated when we're looking at emergency. This is demonstrated by the dog picture, which depicts the Dalmatian dog sniffing the ground in the shade of an overhanging tree. The dog is not recognized by first identifying its parts, the feet, the ears, the nose, the tail, etc., and then inferring the dog from those component parts. Instead, the dog appears as a whole, all at once. Gestalt theory does not have an explanation on how this perception of the dog appears. It doesn't have an explanation. Now, we've heard this thing about the here and the now. The now we're talking about is our power is in the present. That's what Gestalt theory basically indicates. Nothing exists except the now. The past is gone and the future has not arrived. So you're trying to keep that individual in the moment. In the moment. For many people, the power of the present is lost. They may focus on their past mistakes or engage in endless resolutions and plans for the future, but dealing with the now. Now, when we're looking at the Gestalt theory, um, phenomenological inquiry involves paying attention to what is happening in the here and now. To help clients make contact with the present, ask how and what questions. To promote now awareness, the counselor encourages a dialogue in the present tense by asking questions like these. What is happening now? What is going on now? Which we move on to personal struggles. By asking some of those questions, then these are some of the things that you may find out. Struggles that individuals have as clients in living in the here and the now. Before I explain all of these, I want you to look at the graphic there. The graphic says the tiny seed knew that in order to grow, it needed to be dropped in dirt, covered in darkness, and struggle to reach the light. That's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with individuals and you're trying to apply this particular theory. First thing we're looking at is unfinished business, which we'll talk about in more detail in the next slide. They're avoiding, this could be a struggle, avoiding experiencing the here and now. Avoiding experience the here and now. Or catastrophic expectations. Memories is one way to diffuse energy or hold these expectations that they have on our lives. Catastrophic expectations. Most of us experience situations where we expect something terrible to happen or simply expect something to go wrong. Ever wonder where these expectations rise up from? Most often, some events from our past or from our childhood went wrong, leading us to believe that similar events will go on or will happen. That's these catastrophic expectations. Also, the experiences of feeling stuck, the impasse. Unfinished business. Feelings that about the past that are unexpressed. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about unfinished business. These feelings are associated with distinct memories and fantasies. Feelings not fully experienced linger in the background and interfere with effective contact. The results is preoccupation, compulsive behavior, wariness, oppressive energy, and self-defeating behavior. Now, when people identify their whole selves, when they acknowledge whatever aspect arises at a moment, the conditions of wholeness and growth are created. When people do not identify with parts of themselves, inner conflict is created, and all of the person's resources can go into needed interactions of self and other. When we're looking at this thing that's called the paradoxical theory of change, the more one tries to be who one is not, the more one stays the same. The more one tries to be who one is not, the more one stays the same. So, people have this unfinished business, these unresolved issues that they carry along with them. If you are in a relationship or you have come from a home where your father may have been abusive toward your mother, many individuals, whether it's male or female, because both genders experience domestic abuse. But you say, well, I'm never going to be her. I'm never going to be him. I'm never going to let anyone abuse me or mistreat me. You fight it, you fight it, and fight it. And then one day you realize that you're in an abusive relationship. This person may have been emotionally abusive to you, may have said some things to you that were horrible or neglect you. And you realize that you're still that person that you tried not to be. Because you, as a result of your parent being abused, you took on some of that pain, and you've never ever resolved some of those issues. You've never ever resolved those issues that you have surrounding it, whether it's trust, lack of trust, or things like that. So you spend a lot of time and energy trying not to be that person who you actually are. So if you have that unfinished business, you have to go resolve that. That's something that can go on and on and on and on. Contact and resistances to contact. Contact, interacting with nature and with other people without losing one's individuality. Resistance to contact, these are the defenses we develop to prevent us from experiencing the present fully. There are 5 major channels of resistance that I'm going to go into a little bit in more detail in the next slides. Under optimal conditions, there is ongoing movement between connecting and withdrawal. When the experience of coming together is blocked repeatedly, one is left in a state of isolation. Isolation is a disturbance because it is fixed. It does not respond to the whole range of needs and fail to allow close contact to emerge. Likewise, if the need to withdraw is blocked, the loss of separate identity occurs. Where optimal function requires that contact and awareness happen. Optimal functioning requires that contact and awareness happen. An example, take in food, idea, or love. The person discriminates about what to take in and what meaning to attach to that which to take in. One thing that I definitely want to highlight before I move to the next slide, in order for one to integrate and be whole, what is taken in must be assimilated. Assimilation is the process of experiencing what is to be taken in, deconstructing it, keeping what is useful, and discarding what is not. Deconstructing it, keeping what is useful, and discarding what is not. Now, what are these efforts or defenses that people develop to prevent them from experiencing the present fully? Introjection is one. Accepting without processing or internalizing. Accepting without processing or internalizing. Projection. The very thing we despise in others is the thing we despise in ourselves. Retroflexion. Doing to oneself what we like to do to another. Deflection. Dancing around in a point, avoiding it. And confluence. No boundaries, having no boundaries. What is the role of therapists in Gestalt therapy? The therapist does not interpret the client for the clients, but assist in developing the means to make their own interpretations. They help them in doing this. The therapist is considered the creative agent of change, an inventor, and a compassionate and caring human being. They also engage a client in active experimentation of their behaviors. They provide a safe, encouraging environment for experimentation and challenging for heightened awareness. How and what, not why. How and what. So they actually help. So this role is more collaborative instead of directive, like some of the others that we've talked about before. In Gestalt therapy, What I want to say before I go into these therapeutic techniques is the therapist in sessions do not follow specific guidelines. In fact, therapists are encouraged to use creativity in their approaches depending on the context and each person's personality. Now, what is consistent is the emphasis on direct contact between therapist and client, direct contact, direct experience and experimentation, and the focus on the what and how, what the client is doing and how or she is doing it, and the here and now. Together, the therapist and the person in therapy will evaluate what is happening now and what is needed as a result. Therapists refrain from interpreting events, focusing only on the immediate. Okay? Remarking on subtle shifts in posture, for example, can bring a person into the present. In this way, Gestalt therapists help people gain a better understanding of how their emotional and physical bodies are connected. Understanding the internal self is the key to understanding actions, reactions, and behaviors. Now, when we're talking about the techniques, Gestalt therapy is practiced in the form of exercise and experiments. It can be administered in individual or group settings. In general, exercises are somewhat established practices in Gestalt therapy designed to arouse action, emotion, and goals from the person in therapy. The therapist and the person in therapy can be examined. They can then examine the results of the exercise in order to increase awareness and help the person understand the here and now. When we're talking about the experiment, experiments arise throughout the development of the therapeutic process and therapeutic relationships. There are core components of Gestalt therapy, and these experiments are core components of Gestalt therapy, and they allow the person in therapy to understand different aspects of a conflict, experience, or mental health issue. Top dog, underdog. It is an internal struggle between two polar opposites. When we're talking about top dog, underdog, one of the polarities is the top dog, underdog. It is the internal struggle between the two polar opposites. Top dog is analogous to Freud's superego. Top dog is moralistic, authoritarian. The top dog aspect of the personality is the demander of perfection, the manifestation of a set of introjected shoulds and shouldn'ts. I should be on time. I should keep my house clean, or should always do perfect work. The top dog, speaking only to the individual from within, is an interjection of societal, family, and authoritarian demands. Now, opposed to the top dog is the underdog, the manifestation of resistance to external demands. Underdog, pleasure-seeking, conniving. That's what they are. Underdogs, pleasure-seeking and conniving. So what does that remind you of in Freud? Id, right? Essentially, the underdog agrees that the top dog's demands are appropriate. However, internal sabotage assures that the demands will never be met. I'll never be able to be on time. I'll never be able to do everything right. Poor me. I'll always be neurotic. In the top dog underdog encounter, the underdog usually wins. The underdog usually wins, triggering depression or anxiety in the person. An example, have clients play both the top dog and the underdog in the role. Okay? Internal dialogue exercises promote higher level of integration between polarities and conflicts within the individual. The internal dialogue exercise. So having those two individuals have some type of dialogue, top dog, underdog. Rehearsal exercise. People often worry about saying and or doing the right thing when the time comes. Have them do the rehearsal. I know I'm going to talk too fast and stumble over my words when I give a speech. People, they worry about these things. They have these questions. How will I perform when asked for a raise? People will often rehearse in their heads. The therapist asks the clients to say aloud those rehearsals. So you're having those individuals rehearse what they're going to say to you. And at that time, they are vocalizing these thoughts. They can hear them, and you can do what? You can do some reflection of feeling or reflection of content or paraphrasing to say, okay, this is what I hear. And then you can have them rehearse those things, and that'll reduce a lot of that tension and anxiety. Exaggeration exercise. The exaggeration exercise, the client is asked to exaggerate the leg shaking repeatedly, and then the client put words to the moment. This will intensify the feelings associated with the behavior and help the client become aware of its meaning. The therapist might say to them, I noticed that when you talk about a particular incident, your leg shakes, or there appears to be some anxiety whenever the person is talking about that and you mention that to them. Having them exaggerate the leg shaking repeatedly and connecting it to those two items, to the thought, to when I'm talking about those two items, nonverbal and verbal, connecting those two things. Making the rounds. Have a group member go up to each member in the group to say or do something with each member. Making the rounds. That's a particular technique. Dream work. Dream work. Do not interpret or analyze dreams, but bring them back to life and relive them as if they are happening now. Now we're going to look at these, continue to talk about the therapeutic techniques. Exercise versus experiment. I've discussed some of this prior. Ready-made techniques versus individualized, spontaneous, and arising from the relationship. Experiments are ways for clients to learn by doing. When you're trying to prepare clients for experiments, don't direct or command. You give permission and encourage them to try. Here I would like to reiterate that experiments arise throughout the development of the therapeutic process and the therapeutic relationship. They are a core component in Gestalt therapy and allow the person in therapy to understand different aspects of conflict, experience, and or mental health issues. Additional therapeutic techniques. Here we're looking at exercises versus experiments. Exercise, internal dialogue exercise, the empty chair. Now, the empty chair is considered the quintessential Gestalt therapy exercise that places the person in therapy across from an empty chair. They are asked to imagine that someone, such as the boss or a relative, that they are or a part of themselves is sitting in the chair, either or. The therapist encourages the dialogue between the empty chair and the person in therapy in order to engage the person's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Now, sometimes the roles are reversed and the person in therapy assumes the metaphorical person or part of a person in the chair. The empty chair technique can be especially useful for helping people become mindful of the whole situation and forgotten or disengaged pieces of their own selves. That is probably one of the most used techniques. Then we have the angel and the devil, top dog versus underdog, which I've already discussed. Then we have what's considered rehearsal exercise, making the rounds or acting out loud. I've already discussed those. Again, I like to reiterate that gives an opportunity for the client to verbalize or vocalize those thoughts that are in their head, and then gives an opportunity to practice and to kind of get past some of that anxiety or the neurotic citizens. Reversal technique plays opposites. And then, of course, we have the exaggeration exercise. Again, the person in the therapy is asked to repeat and exaggerate a particular movement or expression, such as frowning or bouncing a leg, in order to make the person more aware of the emotions attached to that particular behavior. So we're trying to figure that out. What is the emotion attached to this? What makes you do these particular things? Okay, so we're looking at what? Awareness. Reversal exercise. Request to act in the opposite manner of a typical behavior. Passive or assertive. Anger versus calm. Face the anxiety head on. Connect or reconnect with your hidden self. Staying in the feeling. Staying with uncomfortable feelings. This tends to take clients to the next level of awareness. And this is probably going to be one of the most challenging things that you will do when you're working with individuals, is making sure that they stay in the feeling. Stay in the feelings, because individuals will have a tendency to want to talk more about the past or the future instead of staying with that particular feeling, what they're experiencing at the moment. Staying with the feeling. What happens with staying in the feeling, these particular exercise, again, it tends to take clients to the next level of awareness and removes fear of pain. Remember, as Gestalt therapists, experience in the past may be addressed in therapy sessions, but the therapist and the client will focus on exploring what factors made a particular memory come up in this moment, or how the present moment is impacted by experiences in the past. Then we have enactment. It puts feelings and thoughts into action. We could use the empty chair here. If it's just reenacting or enactment, how would you act in this particular situation? Putting words to describing something and increase awareness. Increasing awareness is the goal. Remember, we're talking about awareness. And when you think of Gestalt therapy, you think of the here and now. Guided fantasy. Visualize an experience in the here and now. Explore the feelings associated with the experiences or responses. It's a combination of the past, the present, and the future. Guided fantasy. Here I'd like to reiterate that through these exercises and, again, spontaneous experiments, Gestalt therapy allows people to reconnect with parts of themselves they may minimize, ignore, or deny. Application of approaches. Where can you best use these Gestalt therapy? When there's crisis intervention, treatment of a range of psychosomatic disorders, marital or family therapy, awareness training of mental health professionals, and behavior problems in children. Its application in group counseling. It encourages direct experience in action. Here and now focus allows members to bring unfinished business to the present. Members try out experiments within the group setting. Leaders can use linking to include members in the exploration of a particular individual's problem. Leaders actively design experiments for the group while focusing on awareness and contact. Group leaders actively engage with the members to form a sense of mutuality in the group. What are the limitations of Gestalt therapy? The approach has the potential for the therapist to abuse power by using powerful techniques without proper training. Using powerful techniques without the proper training. This approach may not be useful for clients who have difficulty abstracting and imagining. Difficulty abstracting and imagining. So what are we talking about? What type of clients? Children are pretty concrete at a certain age. Young children. So they need to see something that's more concrete in front of them that they can put hands on, that they can visualize, that's in front of them. Abstract requires a lot of reasoning. So if we have a person who's intellectually disabled, will we use this type of therapy with them? Probably not. The emphasis on therapist authenticity and self-disclosure may be overpowering for some clients. But remember, there are limits in self-disclosure. Okay? The high focus on emotion may pose limitations for clients who have been culturally conditioned to be emotionally reserved. When we're looking at that multicultural component, some individuals are just conditioned to be reserved emotionally, do not show your emotions, do not express your emotions. So that's a limitation. Okay, class, that's it. See you next week. Come and join the celebration on Monday. Have a great day.